Nikola Jokic is the clear MVP with 1 month to go. Then it's Giannis and Embiid. They're neck and neck. And then there's everybody else. There's a lot of guys in the MVP discussion because we are spoiled by the amount of talent right now in the NBA. This postseason, Jokic will have a chance to prove he's the best of them all. It's still the regular season, though, and the best player in the world status is earned in the NBA Finals. So Giannis, the two-time MVP, title winner, and Finals MVP, has a leg up on everybody. But we're at a transitional point in the NBA cycle, and there's no obvious best player. The last time it was like this was the debate about LeBron James versus Kobe Bryant in the late 2000s. Eventually, it was obviously LeBron. But now it's not obvious. LeBron is still one of the best, and he can be the best on any particular night. We just saw him score 56 points on the Warriors last weekend, but he's not the clear number one guy anymore. Jokic is one of the few guys who has a chance to steal that status. To discuss that and a whole bunch else about the NBA through the lens of Jokic, I spoke with Adam Mares, who is the co-host of two Nuggets podcasts, DNVR Nuggets and Locked On Nuggets. Here's what Adam said about the value of ranking the league's best players right now.
The NBA doesn't have a best player. This is my hot take here, Kevin. The NBA does not have a best player right now. And I actually think through most of its history, it has not had a best player. Michael Jordan was the best player, for a long time. LeBron James was the best player for a long time. Right now, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, you got all these great players, and they're all within a margin of error of each other in terms of how you build a roster. Like we saw the Nick Wright tweet a while back that said Jokic is the sixth best player, and everybody got up in arms. Maybe he is the sixth best player, but the difference between 1 and 6 is so close that we shouldn't be talking about these guys in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the basketball has a lot of good players. And for most of its history, it's been that way. We're just stuck in the Michael Jordan way of looking at the league.
Jokic wasn't as much of a fixture of this best player debate last season, even though he won MVP after one of the greatest offensive campaigns in history. That talk is all happening right now because Jokic has matched his offensive brilliance and gotten even a little better. He's still scoring at will from the post, and if he gets doubled, he can still spin into open space to score, and he's always locating teammates with passes. But this year's a little different because he's not only carrying the offensive load, he's also made significant progress again as a defensive player, as Adam explained.
I think number one, his conditioning. I think it's the most underrated part about his game. He's one of the most conditioned. In fact, Chauncey Billups said this before the Nuggets-Portland game the other day, that he thinks Jokic is a top 5 best conditioned athlete in the NBA. I strongly agree with him. The guy, he doesn't look great, but he just doesn't get tired. He plays
Isn't that wild? That we're at that point.
It's so wild. It's underrated how mentally tough he is, I think. Just, that aspect of it. There's a reason he doesn't like to skip games, is because for him, he's all about this, I want to be mentally strong for these challenges. And you watch him even in fourth quarters, and I would say even especially in fourth quarters, the defense picks up. He starts to get more aggressive. His mobility has improved a little bit, although I think that could be overstated. But it's just his conditioning and his ability now to play both ends of the court, if not for 48 minutes, for pretty close to 48 minutes, and ramp it up as the game goes on.
You mentioned Jokic doesn't like to take the games off, likes to just keep going. That's like me. If I take one day off from working out or one day off,
right? It's true, man.
Healthy, I'm done. It's over.
I think Jokic, he takes a game off. He starts playing. He's got these I'm not joking about this, these horse trading video games on his phone. So you take a day off and you start playing that game a little bit. You start to miss home. You miss the horse track. And then, it's like you start from zero again.
While eating tacos, I found some stats to explain Jokic's progress on defense. 5 regular seasons ago, Jokic ranked 43rd of the 49 players with over 1,000 pick and rolls defended and points allowed per play. That's according to Second Spectrum. Jokic was in the company of old Dirk Nowitzki, Thon Maker, and Enes Kanter Freedom, and that's not the names you want to be around. But every single season since, he's gotten better and better and better, and now in 2022, he's allowing only 0.93 points per pick and roll as the big man defending the screen. That's the best of his career. And for the 21-22 season, Jokic ranks 6th in points allowed of the 26 bigs to defend over 1,000 pick and rolls. 6th! Jokic has gone from the bottom of the league to the top. Rudy Gobert and Joel Embiid are on their own, but Jokic is not far behind in the class of DeAndre Ayton and Jared Allen. And look at Mo Bamba, 12th best, above average and trending up. I love it. Jokic gets stops, but he doesn't block many shots. He logs only 0.8 blocks per game. That's lower than Kyle Kuzma and Patrick Beverley. But blocks aren't indicative of defensive ability. Ayton also averages 0.8. So does Steven Adams. All three of those bigs defend dramatically differently for their playoff teams. Jokic has made blocks when he needs to. He has 43 total blocks in the season, and 3 of them have been game-winning blocks at the buzzer. On November 6th, Eric Gordon split through 2 defenders on a handoff from Christian Wood to get into the paint, only to be met by Aaron Gordon floating in the air in front of him, and Jokic was lurking from behind. Eric Gordon passed to Jayshawn Tate, then Jokic turned and pushed it away. On December 28th, up 2 points with 10 seconds left, Jokic committed a rare turnover and the Warriors went on the break. But Jokic sprinted right back to the edge of the restricted area to contain a drive by Otto Porter and then spun towards Jonathan Kuminga to block his shot. On February 12th, he recognized OG Anunoby was about to grab an offensive rebound, so he sprinted across the paint and used his right hand to stuff him. Jokic is normally just an elite positional defender who's always where he's supposed to be, but sometimes he can't pick up blocks. He's always felt in control on offense, and now he's just operating with the same level of precision with his footwork, pivoting different directions to keep in front of attackers, whether it's as a pick and roll defender or whether he's on an island defending outside of the paint. Obviously, Jokic isn't the NBA's best defender, and as Adam said, he does have his limitations with mobility, so players can occasionally blow by him on drives to the basket, but Jokic isn't getting roasted like he once did. Part of the reason why is because Denver properly built its roster around him with long, rangy defenders like Aaron Gordon and Jeff Green, and they have a bunch of tough players across positions who play hard. They minimize mistakes. The Nuggets defend like a top 5 defense when Jokic is on the floor, though, and a slightly below average 17th ranked defense when he's not. Jokic is at the center of their success.
5 years ago, you would talk about you have a rim protector and that's what matters. It elevates, you put a guy at the rim and then everybody else's job is made easier. That's still true today. But I think what we're seeing is, especially with these new rules that are allowing for a little bit more contact out on the perimeter, is that if you have elite pick and roll guards with length and the ability to get through screens, all of a sudden lesser defenders like a Vucevic, Jokic in particular, who has some of the best defensive hands in the NBA, if you could just take away that downhill running guard, if you could just take that away, then he actually can defend really well. The way I describe Jokic is he is great at like 97% of basketball. He's really bad at that 3% where if you're running downhill at him and it's like a 2-on-1, he can't jump to protect the lob, and he's not really quick enough to slide his feet out on the perimeter. So the key is, can you put pieces around that make it so he's not in that zone? And I think what we're seeing is more and more teams are figuring out how to do that. You mentioned the Chicago Bulls. Their guards are rim protectors because they keep the ball away from the rim.
The Bulls have fallen apart with all their best wing defenders. Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball have been out a lot of the time, and that's put too much pressure on Nikola Vucevic. Denver wouldn't be the same without Aaron Gordon for sure. He's an important partner for Jokic because he usually defends the best perimeter scorer and Jokic defends the best interior guy. The variety of styles around the league, though, is nuts right now. There are big, long teams like the Cavs. Rudy Gobert drops better than anyone doing it the traditional way for the Jazz. The Celtics are doing really cool things with Robert Williams away from the ball, letting him roam and stay near the rim. Some teams blitz a lot, like the Bucks, because they have Giannis. What the best teams are doing is creating a scheme to maximize their personnel. That's why there's so much variety right now. On defense, the Nuggets found a way to build around Jokic, and on offense, he's allowing them to innovate.
What Jokic has provided me is he's unlocked a way of playing basketball that I had never thought of, that I had never seen. And I thought basketball was this fixed thing and this is how you do it and you do this and there's a little bit of wiggle room positionally, but generally speaking, this is how it is. Jokic has taken it and completely reinvented the way I think of the game. And I think, wow, in the same way Steph Curry has. Steph Curry started shooting all these deep threes and, having a quick trigger. And you think, wow, look at how the ripple effects of that and how all of a sudden now the league evolves. Jokic to me has done the same thing. I think Giannis is doing very similar things. Embiid is more of a traditional center, dominant, but maybe a little bit more of that traditional route. To me, that's the story the league should be telling is, hey, we always thought the game was played this way, and there's been little changes on the margins. But right now we're seeing the game being a whole new avenues of the game of basketball being discovered. And let's explore all the implications of that. What does it mean if you have a point center? How does that change what the different ripple effects and how you can win at the NBA level? And to me, that's what's so interesting.
Jokic being a point center allows Denver to do everything on the court, but he became this. He improved as a shooter. He improved as a defender. He got in shape. He was drafted 41st out of Serbia. 41st! Jokic is 27 years old now, having the best season of his life because he's always adding more to his game year after year. And that's what I asked Adam about. What's the latest thing that Jokic has added?
And the thing over the last 2 years, so he added this last year, but he's gotten better at it this year, is his attacking closeout game. You know, his three-point shot now, people are biting on that. They're worried about it. And he's just gotten really, and it's funny to say, really quick with his first step so that he can get his defender on his hip. And then he's just so good at slowing him down. Once he gets on the hip, he just keeps him there, kind of leans on him all the way to the basket and then powers it up. So his first step off the dribble is one of those things that has unlocked his game. And Denver will go to it. If they're clogging the paint against him and sending extra defenders, Denver will actually get him on the move, set him screens from the wing so he's cutting into the basket, catching it on the move, and then making one dribble moves towards the basket. So that part's unlocked a new aspect of his offense.
I feel like his offense, his scoring specifically, is a bit underrated, at least nationally. I mean, everybody, like the playmaking, all the passes, like the whip over the head he had the other night, the passes go viral from Jokic, which is unusual because like most other players, it's not the passes that go viral. But with Jokic, it is. It's just his scoring doesn't. Like sometimes it's slow. It doesn't look like it's a typical highlight. He's not dunking over people, but he is one of the league's most efficient isolation scorers. He is the league's best post playmaker plus scorer. You can argue Embiid's a better scorer, but not a better scorer and playmaker like Jokic. He can attack closeouts, like you said. He can run off screens. He can run pick and roll for you with a small guard screening for him. Jokic, like there's no answer for Jokic when he has the ball in his hands. There's no answer.
He's the league's 13th best scorer right now and on point per game, just looking at point per game, but he's the most efficient of all those guys by a pretty wide margin. So
exactly. The high volume guys, he's on another level in terms of efficiency.
A whole other level. And I think what happens here, why his scoring doesn't get talked about, because I honestly think he's one of the best scorers in the NBA. Why it doesn't get talked about, the same way nobody really replicated Kareem's skyhook, it just never caught on that everybody was trying it. Jokic scores these weird little like one-handed scoop shots and just things that no player's going to the gym to work on. And I just think that's part of it. It's not the DeRozan fall away where you're like, man, that's a pretty shot. I've tried. It's hard. Jokic does things you've never tried before, and you never will try.
Because he improvises in the moment. I mean, sometimes, like I remember I interviewed Jokic, I don't know, 4 years ago, something like that, whenever it was in Denver. And I asked him, like, have you practiced like your accuracy as a passer? Is that something like you practice? He's like, no, I just look and the ball goes where I want it to. Like he's almost kind of amazed at his own ability. And I'm sure it's similar for him with those types of weird scoop shots you're talking about. He just sees the rim and it goes where he wants it to go.
Supreme body control. You saw that video with Steph Curry the other day, that incredible video where he makes like 20, 30 shots in a row.
The warm-ups, right?
He shoots the 20-foot floater, goes way up in the air and goes in. Like, again, I'm not sure
he's magic.
Yeah, he just sees the rim and is like, this is how much I need to put on this shot and it'll go in. I think Jokic's the same way. He just, like you said, he hasn't practiced these moves or this touch. He just has the body control to know exactly what to do to make the ball go where it wants.
Jokic kind of reminds me of a self-taught guitarist. The technique may not always be technically perfect, but it can be perfect for that particular person. Like Jimi Hendrix wrapped his thumb over the neck. It worked for him. Jokic does improv dance on the post because it works for him, even if it's different than what everybody else does. 9 players have posted up 250 times this season, and the Nuggets have scored 1.11 points per post up by Jokic. That's first by a strong margin, with Embiid second at 1.05. Now, I know Sixers fans will say, how about just strictly as a scorer? But even if you remove the plays when they pass the ball and look only at post-ups when they try to score, Jokic still scores with greater efficiency than Embiid. Both of them are elite. That's why they're in the MVP conversation together. Adam is right, though, that Embiid is more of the traditional type. He studied Hakeem. He took from Dirk. He has absorbed so much from bigs across eras. So in that sense, Jokic and Embiid are very much similar. But Jokic has like his own genre as a player. Jokic is unstoppable on the post, as we know. Even this season, his game-winning assist came out of the post. Having a point center means your team can also run pick and roll with him so he can throw lobs. Or he can be a screener and roll down the lane before scoring or finding a teammate. And because he can shoot threes at 40% over the past 2 seasons and shoot them from very deep, he's always pulling bigs away from the paint. That's hard on a defense and gives Michael Malone and the Denver coaching staff the freedom to get creative. If Jokic gets a touch outside, his defenders gotta respect him and his teammates are able to cut around him to get open. The Nuggets also frequently run Jokic through screens to get him open to score going to the basket, or those screens can be set from the perimeter to get him open for a 3. A big who can effectively utilize off-ball screens becomes a constant challenge for a defense, especially when they can pass like Jokic can. So much of what he does could be applicable in his future with Denver.
This last 12 months have been tragic for the Nuggets, losing Jamal Murray the way they have. If there's one really overarching super positive thing that comes out of it, is Jokic has been forced so far outside of his comfort zone. And things like this, I suspect next year when Jamal Murray's back, that number's going to go down out of sheer necessity. You just don't need him running off of screens like this. Denver did that out of necessity because teams were clogging the paint and doing this or that. But what I think is nice is Jokic has added so many parts to his game, and the team now is confident in all these different parts of his game that will be in the back pocket for years to come now of, hey, we can do all these different things. We don't have to, but we can do all these different things if we need them in a playoff series or what have you. I put out who has a better career highlight mixtape, Carmelo Anthony or Nikola Jokic. And the results of this poll had something like 15,000 votes. And it was 50% to 50%.
Really?
And the quote tweets in replies to this all said, "This is the dumbest poll I've ever seen. It's obviously blank. It's obviously Jokic. It's obviously Melo." And I just thought, like, hey, man, people like such different things. Those two have like no crossover, right, in skill set. People like different things. And I think that's the part that's so cool about basketball. It doesn't have to be one way. It can be a lot of different ways.
You're 100% right. I mean, I think with Jokic, the fascinating thing with him is, can it be replicated? Can players play in his mold? I don't think anybody has his, pinpoint bullseye vision. But what is it that maybe other teams can learn from the way in which the Nuggets do construct their team around him that could be implemented elsewhere, even if they don't have that supreme godly level of passing ability that he has?
I think it's a lot like with Steph Curry in that I don't know if there will ever be another Steph Curry, but there are a lot of B versions of Steph Curry. I mean, Damian Lillard's a great player. This is no insult to say he's totally the B version of Steph Curry. And you've got other guys that are maybe the B or C version. And I think in years to come, we might even have an A- version of Steph Curry. Maybe we'll have another Steph Curry. I don't know. I never want to close the door on that. But I think teams learn that, hey, there is value to having a quick trigger. First of all, do you remember 8 years ago, off the dribble threes were like thought of as like, hey, you take one of those, okay, but let's not take too many off the dribble. Now everybody understands not just that it can be a weapon, but when and how to deploy that to make it a weapon. I think similar things are true of Jokic, that we probably won't see another Jokic, but we will see a B version. In fact, I think we already have one in Sacramento in Domantas Sabonis, who's a fantastic player who does a lot of the same things Jokic does, just maybe at a little bit lesser scale, especially some of the scoring and some of the touch. So I think we will see an evolution of bigs who are maybe not in the Jokic mold, but who are thought of they don't have to just be a rim roller, rim protector. If this guy can dribble a little bit, how do we use that to our advantage? If this guy can shoot the floater zone shot, how do we use that to our advantage? And now all of a sudden you start to get a little bit more creative. Guys that make it to the NBA by and large have some elite talents. And rather than look and say they don't have the right talents, you look at it and say, how do we use these talents to our advantage?
The Nuggets use those talents to their advantage by building their defense around him in the best possible way, and by allowing Jokic just to be who he is, to elevate the talents of his teammates around him, even by having missing guys like Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. It's absolutely incredible what Jokic has done this season. And whether you're watching the film or looking at the numbers, Jokic has just been absolutely dominant. This is a historic year by him. And like I said at the top, right now for me, Jokic is the MVP. That could change over the final month. Things can happen. Players can miss the games. But whether it's statistically or just watching the games using your eyeballs, Nobody can do all of the things Jokic can do. And I think this postseason, with Denver having Murray potentially back and Porter Jr. potentially back, Denver's going to go from, oh, they're a nice playoff team. What a great story. Jokic might win MVP. And they're going to become a team, wait a minute, they could go all the way to the NBA Finals and win the whole dang thing. And if that were to happen, even if Denver were able to just make the NBA Finals, that's where you're going to see that conversation about Jokic being the best player in the world become more solidified. If he's able to go back-to-back right after Giannis did it, it's going to be those two guys. Really, it's the leaders in the clubhouse for that race. But you got Luka still. LeBron, even at his age, is still kicking ass. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. There's so many great players in the NBA today. Never mind Joel Embiid now with James Harden. They could win the whole thing. We are spoiled with all the great talent today. And I hate the fact that we invest so much time debating who's the best, when right now we just don't know. But I do feel right now pretty confidently that Jokic is the MVP for the 21-22 season, and he's going to have a chance to prove he's the best of every player in all of basketball coming this postseason. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of The Void. I really appreciate it. Give us a like, subscribe, and be sure to comment. I want to know your thoughts, what you thought about this. This is a little different than what we normally do with The Void, and we have a full podcast as well with Adam. We went like 30 minutes, narrative pod style, getting into Jokic, what it means for Denver, what it means for the rest of the NBA. It was a lot of fun to do that with him, and I'm looking forward to your feedback on this video as well, so please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fun day.